What's up, Saw fans? ANCHORPETE here, and boy, am I super happy because I am back with my friend Danny, Dr. Zayas God. And Danny, it's really good to be doing a show again with you, man.
Yeah, it's been a while, and a lot of stuff's gone down, and I'm just glad to be kind of back on the horse talking about horror as
Back on the
opposed
Saw
to
horse?
yeah. It sounds like a trap in the series.
Yeah. There probably has been a rocking horse trap, right?
I I feel like there has to have been. There were a few traps involving like two people on either side, kind of going back and forth. So
Yeah. And they have had like a merry-go-round, but it wasn't with horses.
yeah,
That
it's
was in
true.
Saw 6. So Danny, you've actually just watched like all the Saw movies in the past like month or so, right? And now
Yeah.
today we're going to be talking about Spiral. So, Danny, for Spiral, you know that this actually filmed in July 8th of 2019.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's crazy, like 2 years
It
ago, right?
Yeah, it makes sense because so many movies got you forget almost now that like things have opened back up. I just saw this in the movie theater. It was Charlotte's first horror movie experience in the theater,
That's
and
awesome.
like her and I joked around like it was the first time back at our local theater since the week before things closed, and it was Sonic the Hedgehog. And
Oh,
the
wow.
only other time we had gone to a theater since then was when Long Island opened theaters. We drove out to see New Mutants, and it was just fun to be in the theater that
There
day.
you
Let's
go.
say
Nice
that.
and political. Yeah. Dude, Sonic feels like a lifetime ago. That was
Oh,
so long ago. Yeah.
that's so long ago.
Yeah. And so, what I wanted to do, the reason why I brought up the date is because, first of all, we're going to be spoiling this movie at this point. So, if you have not seen Spiral, then go see it and then come check out this video on our channel. But I was going to say, Danny, this movie came out on July 8th of 2019, and that kind of blows my mind because I feel like the very end of this movie, it takes like a super sharp turn and it becomes very like Black Lives Matter, and it seems like very like you know of the time with protest and cop violence, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the whole movie in general is about cop violence and like corrupt cops, but then at the very end, it's like really shoving it down your throat.
yeah. It gets very political. But I mean, the Saw franchise has kind of toyed with a variety of political ideas throughout the series. Like Saw 6 was the healthcare was all about like the evils of healthcare in America. Saw 5, I think, was about like the whole Saw trap plot was about like corrupt politicians.
Yeah,
Um, and, so there's always been this kind of like undertone of politics, sometimes subtext, sometimes right in your face. And I think this one is more of the in your face variety
yeah.
than the rest of the series.
Yeah, and even just overall in general with Saw, besides the healthcare stuff in Saw 6, there's also like drug addiction. They always have like a commentary on drugs. That's in a few of them too.
Mm-hmm.
Like the response to like people be on drugs, like how we support them, and then like what it's like to be an addict. That's also a big part of the movies too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this movie, like I said, it's been going back a while. It was actually Chris Rock that got the ball rolling on this movie. He
Yeah.
uh, he was talking to an executive at Lionsgate, and the guy suggested that Chris Rock get into horror. That might be a good trajectory. And the thing is, I was super excited to see this movie because I thought that Chris Rock did this amazing performance in the most recent season of Fargo.
So I have heard
Yeah,
of his performance in Fargo,
yeah,
and I haven't watched that show. God knows it's on the eternal list of the never ending queues that I have on variety of platforms. But what intrigued me is I always love when an actor, namely a comedian, a comedic actor, just pulls a complete 180 and goes into something totally different. Like,
yeah,
I think instantly of Jim Carrey doing Eternal Sunshine, The Truman Show, his best movies. Like
Yes.
not the movies that you want to watch over and over again because of their comedic value, of course.
Right.
But Eternal Sunshine, Man on the Moon, those were like phenomenal movies that probably should have gotten him Oscar nominations. Or then like Adam Sandler just the other year with Uncut Gems.
Oh, yeah.
Will Ferrell, one of my favorite movies one of the movies I recommend to everybody who that slipped under the radar is this little movie called Stranger Than Fiction. I don't know if you ever saw.
I have.
Such a great movie. And
Yeah.
it was and it's funny, but it's not the Will Ferrell in your face Saturday Night Live funny. And it's like whenever a comedian steps out of the comfort zone and does something, I mean, as far to the opposite direction as a Saw movie, that interests me right away. And I thought Chris Rock was, for the most part, I thought he was really good in this.
Yeah, it's funny because most of the guys you mentioned are like Saturday Night Live alum, right?
Yeah.
Like they've been on SNL, and a lot of them, Adam Sandler, Uncut Gems, and then he was also great in Punch Drunk Love too, right?
Yeah.
Right. But with Chris Rock, I wouldn't necessarily hold him at the same standard as the other actors, just except for his performance in Fargo. I've seen quite a few movies with Chris Rock in them, and I think he's a good actor. But I just think that he hasn't turned into the kind of performances as these other actors are saying. But in that Fargo, he does really good. What I think it comes down to is who are you working with, right? I mean, Adam Sandler working with Paul Thomas Anderson, right? And then when Chris Rock was on Fargo, he was working with Noah Hawley, who, he just turns out some great stuff. So with this, I mean, I like Darren Bousman, and we can talk about Darren Bousman in a little bit. But then the guys that wrote this, they also wrote Jigsaw and stuff. So I think it's just the source material that he was working with. He didn't really have a chance to really take it to the next level.
I also think that the parts that I didn't necessarily love with Chris Rock were not necessarily his fault. To me, they were, like you said, there were moments in the movie where I felt like the director could have been like, all right, Chris, let's do that again, but a little less like you're on stage. Because especially for me, I thought the first 10 to 15 minutes were a little rough in the sense that so much of his dialogue came across like he was doing an angry comedy sketch.
Yeah.
And as the movie went on, I thought he got better and better and better. And I really enjoyed the last, from his performance standpoint, the last probably 30 to 40 minutes of the movie, I thought he was great in. But I really, it took me a little while to get there because it just, the whole opening, I thought was a little too, it was like a little too much stand-up comedy mixed with what almost felt like a parody of Lethal Weapon. Angry cop yelling at the police chief in the station. It was like, it felt like I was watching an 80s cop movie mixed with Chris Rock's stand-up comedy. And I love Chris Rock's stand-up comedy, and I think that's why it took me a while to differentiate his act. It's funny, we're in the car on the way home, and Charlotte turns to me and goes, you know who the actor sounded like? He sounded like the zebra in Madagascar. And I said, well,
maybe
this is going to blow your mind, babe, but it was the zebra in Madagascar.
There you go. Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. Because first off, I actually think that when he is doing voice acting in a cartoon too, in that movie in particular, Madagascar, I think he's doing a really good job in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another thing to unpack is that I really love Chris Rock's stand-up. I think that besides George Carlin, Chris Rock might be number 2 for me of all time.
I mean,
Bigger and Black. Right, exactly.
It's one of the greatest comedy specials I've ever seen.
Right.
And there's a clip that he does when I'm teaching my economics classes and I do my unit on jobs versus careers. I actually use the clip of Chris Rock where he talks about scraping shrimp at Red Lobster.
Oh yes.
He's great. Yeah.
So good. And so with him, with his stand-up, it's a few things too. You said that it reminded you of Lethal Weapon, which kind of cracks me up because he's in Lethal Weapon 4, right?
I totally forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he's in Lethal Weapon 4. And the funny thing about that, too, is that I looked up the behind the scenes. And when they first talked about making this movie, they were actually going to make him Danny Glover's like son or something, or related to Danny Glover
Danny Glover. Oh, from the first song. Okay.
from the first Saw, right? But then they made it like Samuel L. Jackson, right? But then besides that, like I totally agree. Where it seemed like he was doing his stand up with the whole Forrest Gump thing, and then like in the beginning when he was yelling at his cop boss, like that really bothered me because you know me, I hate exposition in movies, and like literally they were just yelling exposition at each other's face. You know, oh, I'm just doing this because my dad was the star cop, and then she's like, yeah, well, we've had this many homicides, and there's a heat wave. Like they were just yelling exposition at each other.
Yeah.
Too much for me, man.
I mean, what did I say to you on Twitter that you said was like the line we were going to start with? I didn't hate this movie.
Oh, yes.
I didn't hate this movie. Charlotte and I are getting ready to do our like Saw franchise ranking, and this for me is probably, there's 9 movies now.
Yeah.
So this is like teetering into around the bottom third.
Oh, okay.
But here's what I do want to say. I've gained such a respect for this franchise.
Yeah.
Watching them, binging them with Charlotte. I had only seen up to Saw 5, I believe.
Okay.
And then I was just like, these movies are too repetitive, and which they are, of course.
Yeah.
But there's also such like a cool soap opera effect to them because of how much continuity and callback there is.
Yep.
There's only really one Saw movie out of 9 that I genuinely dislike.
Okay.
And then there's a few that I just don't particularly love. Like,
yeah.
But it's really shockingly a good franchise. Like, I mean, when you think of horror franchises, you think of the big 3. You think of Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
Right.
And I'll be straight. The Saw franchise has a much better ratio of good to bad movies than all 3 of those franchises.
Whoa. Okay.
And for me, anyway, I'll tell you straight up. Saw 3D, Saw 7. That's the only one I completely dislike. And Charlotte and I think both have that at the bottom of our list.
Yeah.
So I didn't love Spiral, but it was a serviceable addition to the series.
Yeah. So Saw 3D is kind of like the Iron Man 2 or the Incredible Hulk of the Saw franchise.
But I don't hate those movies either.
Right. And you know, dude, I totally agree with you because like I don't like torture porn. I don't like to watch movies where it's like, oh, we're just watching this to watch people get cut up or suffer. I hate that shit. And the thing is, though, right, is that with this franchise, I don't know. There's something about it where I like it, even if it's sort of silly. Like, I wanted to talk about a few of the silly things in this movie, just so I can point out how, like, I overlook them. I'm like, I don't care. Like, did you notice, for instance, man, there is, like, 7 scenes of people calling other people and getting their voicemail. Like, at least 7 scenes.
So I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Because I was too busy picking up on all the little Pulp Fiction references that Darren Lynn Bousman dropped. And I even tweeted at him a picture of Samuel Jackson and John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, a GIF of them from Pulp Fiction, because the basement where the cold case room that they need to like use a combination.
Yeah.
It says Vincent and Jules on the door, which are of course Vincent Vega and Jules in, and of course Sam Jackson's in this movie. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, and there was another reference earlier in the movie where somebody says something, and I was like, oh, is that a veiled Pulp Fiction reference that I'm picking up on? Maybe not. And then I saw that, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm on to you, Darren Lynn Bousman.
Yeah, well, when you have this like caliber of actors in it, right? Like when you have Samuel L. Jackson, man, you want to make references to that stuff. Like he's barely in the movie, but you know he's one of the highlights of the whole film, especially the end.
Oh, when he said, when he screams out, "You want to play games, motherfucker?"
Oh yeah.
I was just like, all right, yeah, let's
Yeah.
go. I'm all in.
They were trying to tap into that like snakes on a plane right there.
Yeah,
I think, right? Yeah.
you know, Samuel L. Jackson he's at the point now where he's a great actor, but he's Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
And to the point where it, like, the two movies that we got trailers for right before Spiral came on had Samuel L. Jackson in them.
Really?
And then the movie starts, and Charlotte looks at me and goes, "He's in this movie too?" I said, "He's in every movie."
What were the two movies?
It was The Hitman's Bodyguard,
Oh,
The
okay.
Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, the
Yeah.
sequel with Salma Hayek.
Right.
And then there was this other movie that it's from the makers of John Wick, and it kind of just looks like another John Wick style action movie.
Oh.
The Protege, I believe it's called. Where like
Think-
he trains a female assassin, and then Michael Keaton's in it. Yeah, it looks fun, but it looks also derivative of every other John Wick clone that's come out. So
Gotcha.
But it's just funny. He's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love too is that they didn't necessarily have Marvel style de-aging in this one, right? When they take 70-something-year-old Samuel L. Jackson and to make him younger, they gave him like one of the worst mustaches I think I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
I was like, they're not even trying with that one. So, you know, maybe we should talk about just like the kills and just like what we thought about overall, like how we felt about it. And then you can bring Charlotte in too.
All right.
So as far as like the kills go, did you think that these kills were like more upsetting than other Saw kills? Were they sort of like on par with them? What do you think of them compared to the other Saw movies?
There was only one kill in the movie that I didn't. If we're talking about like the traps, the traps I thought were okay. I didn't think anything was top tier.
Yeah.
And since like it's pretty much established right off the bat that these aren't the greatest characters, they're not the best people.
Yes.
I didn't really have any empathy for them, whereas I had a lot of empathy for a lot of other characters throughout the series.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The only time where I was like, wow, that's effed up was with the police chief, because like her only way out of her torture device was to paralyze herself. And I'm like, that's not a choice. Like one guy's like, lose your tongue. The other guy's lose your fingers. She's like, be condemned to a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Like that's not really fair.
Yeah.
And I really kind of felt bad for her.
Oh yeah. But did you think he was going to save her?
I honestly, no, I didn't. I thought that the movie didn't have a big enough body count.
Yeah.
And I thought like once the what was it, wax
started to,
I was like, oh, she's dead.
Yeah. I thought it was actually pretty gross when he pulled the wax off her face and her face was really burnt like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I didn't think that she was going to be one of the kills, but I realized that it was like, okay, everyone in this police department is corrupt, so they're going to kill them all off. But they made her to where you like felt for her and that you cared about her, you know, and you cared about his partner too. But then, spoilers, his partner is the copycat killer.
I mean, that's the other thing where they established that all the cops in this department, are corrupt.
Yeah.
And then can't stop coughing.
You got any water over there?
I'm drinking beer. It's not working.
Oh.
I think they only kill. There's the cop at the beginning with the tongue.
Tongue.
There's the fingers guy.
Right.
The chief or the head.
Right. They kill the guy that he's not a cop, but it's like a drug addict. They skin him.
But like there were at least two other police officers shown in the movie that were real dirty cops. That
Yeah.
like there was the other African American actor.
Yeah.
He was in the movie like the whole time, working in the background.
Yeah.
To the point where I started to suspect him. Maybe at the beginning, I was like either waiting for him to get killed or waiting for him to be exposed as a one of the villains. And then there was the female partner of the finger cop guy.
Yeah.
And nothing happened to her. And I was like, like you said, like I'm not sitting here going, torture porn, let's go. But it's a Saw movie, and I'm kind of expecting a body count of certain size.
Yeah.
And, all the other Saw movies feature big, complex game plots with multiple victims. But I guess that's what this was. This, from the book of Saw, I've seen a lot of reviews, and I have to admit, I felt this a little bit too, where it felt like they wanted to make, and like we mentioned Lethal Weapon earlier, but they wanted to make like a dark police procedural movie with a little bit of Saw.
Okay.
And it was very Seven-ish.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
And it's like, one of the, and I think this is where my disconnect with this movie and with Jigsaw also come in, is that the first 7 movies came out year after year after year for 7 consecutive years.
Right.
And there's so much tight continuity for those first 7.
Right.
So these kind of like soft reboot style movies, that's the main thing they're missing.
Yeah.
And I was kind of hoping with Bousman back, because he did Saws 2, 3, and 4 and really got that started.
Yes.
This was going to, in some way, tie all the way back to the beginning. And it doesn't. It's kind of just like its own little, almost like an attempt to start its own little universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
but you know what's interesting about that whole scenario, right? Hello, Charlotte. I want to make one point for your dad, and then you could totally tell us how you felt about the movie. It's real interesting because when I was doing the research, I saw that Darren Bousman actually said that this movie could be its own separate thing, and that there still could be a Saw 9. Now, in that same article that I read, I also read that the next thing would be Saw X. That would be like the sequel.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I think they're trying to see how well this movie does, the reception it gets, right? But they were either going to treat it like this is its own thing, and it's not like Saw, or that it's like a continuation, right? And so I agree. Like, to me, the main appeal of the movies is like how everyone was like connected, and how like, you'll see stuff happening in different movies that are like taking place at the same time or like before.
Yeah.
I love that. And then, these movies are like removed. This one's definitely removed. I mean, it just felt like this guy was using the Saw, the Jigsaw persona just so he could have a cover for his true motive.
Yeah. And you already mentioned that, who the killer is and who even, and I even said it to her. I had a feeling right away.
Yeah.
Like you did.
I had a feeling right away because the Saw movies love to show you everything.
Yeah.
So if they don't show you something, then they're not showing you something for a reason.
Right.
And so when they found the skinned body, they don't show him in the trap at all.
Nope.
And they never show his face on the skinned body.
Nope.
And he just kind of disappears from the movie. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay.
I see what you did there.
I was like, he's definitely. And so, like, when he shows up at the end, I think I audibly went, right.
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah, you weren't even that shocked, right?
Yeah. Well, Charlotte, now that you're with us, right, I want to ask you a question. Don't tell us which Saw movie you like the best, but why do you like the Saw movies in general?
Yeah, why do you like the Saw movies?
Because I like. It's weird for a 10-year-old girl, but I like gore.
That's okay. A lot of people like gore. You know?
In a horror movie, I just think gore is like one thing you need. And that's what makes the Saw movies just like be a Saw movie.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, did you think that this movie had really good gore? Did you think that Spiral had good gore?
It had okay gore.
Which was your favorite trap scene?
Probably either the beginning or the finger cop guy.
Yeah.
I like that we've just decided finger cops.
Yeah, finger cop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when his fingers were getting pulled off, I think that was probably the most gruesome thing in the whole movie. Yeah.
It was either that or the tongue scene. Like the other two, I'm trying to think. Like the end trap wasn't really gory, and then there's the glass one where you don't really see that much. So
Yeah. The implication of the glass trap, that really bothered me because I was just thinking about like glass being shot at you. Oh man, that
yeah.
freaks me out. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I guess also there was the whole like skinning thing, but that was kind of a red herring.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was pretty gross when they were showing that. Yeah, and that was a good touch because they showed the tattoo, right, of his son. It was
Yeah.
on that doll. So Charlotte, did you like the little pig doll in this movie better, or do you like Billy the puppet better?
Billy the puppet.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird because when I didn't see Billy at the beginning on the TV, I kind of was just like, Daddy, we're leaving.
Yeah.
What Saw game is a Saw game without Billy the puppet? Now it's just that pig mask person.
Although
Yeah.
I do like, and we mentioned at the beginning, like the political aspect of this, I like that, the pig mask has been a part of the Saw franchise, but to then make this the pig puppet in a movie about corrupt cops is kind of a nice little like dig, like keeping with the continuity of the franchise and then using it to. So that was pretty. I didn't mind the pig puppet. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because they say it's from the Book of Saw in this title, right? And I was thinking that like they're gonna have like a whole bunch of movies like this, and it's gonna be like one aspect of Jigsaw, and someone's gonna use that. Now, this movie, when it came out, it had a different title, or not when it came out, when they were making it, it had a different title. The title was gonna be The Organ Donor. So it wasn't even Spiral. The reason why it's called Spiral, and you guys probably know this, is because Billy the Puppet has Spiral, painted on his face, right? So it would have been cool if it didn't have that title and it was called The Organ Donor, and then you just really lean into the pig puppet thing, because of the cops.
Yeah. Organ donor, I mean, they want the movie. It sounds stupid, but I mean, they want the movie to make money, and a horror movie called The Organ Donor versus a movie that hints at a connection to a much larger franchise. You're gonna do that, It makes sense from a monetary standpoint, especially given that movies haven't been able to make money for the last year.
Yeah. Good point, man. Yeah. Well, so Charlotte, did you like Chris Rock, the main guy in this movie? The zebra from Madagascar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think he was funny, or what'd you think? Did you feel bad for him?
Yeah, but he didn't really, when his last partner was getting killed, he acted kind of like he didn't even care. He was like, come on, talk to me, and then he just left.
Oh, you mean the very
his
end?
last partner, the guy that was getting killed with the glass?
No, I'm talking about when his Pete,
Uh-oh.
not you, but
in the movie, yeah, the character Pete. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the guy's name was Pete. Yeah, and he was getting shot up with the glass. Yeah. He's like, "I'll see you later, Pete."
He didn't even care.
Yeah. Sorry, we had like a little bit of a glitch there for a second. But Charlotte, your dad was saying that he would put this in the bottom of his Saw list of Saw movies, right? What about you? Do you feel that way too?
Well, I actually did that. Like the worst is at the top, so this would probably be at the top.
Whoa. Okay. So you're not a fan of this movie. So why did you not like this movie as much as other Saw movies?
I didn't really like it because it didn't really connect to the Saw movies. We never went back to Jigsaw. What happened to the guy who's mainly working with John Kramer?
Oh,
the guy who was working with him 10 years ago who set up Lawrence's trap and Amanda's trap. Like, whatever happened to him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we are we are like deep into the lore of the series now.
Yeah.
And like all the other, even Jigsaw tries to like retcon things, and there's all those like accomplices to Jigsaw. So like I think she was going into this thinking it was going to be a straight Saw movie, and she wanted those connections.
Yeah.
And like this was just very disconnected from that.
For like example, from like 1 to 2, we still see Amanda, and from 4 to 6, we still see Hoffman.
Hoffman, freaking guy never goes away.
I know. Even when his face gets cut open, yeah, pretty nasty. Yeah, so for me, I gotta admit that like there wasn't a lot of suspense for this movie. I kind of felt like I could see things coming from a mile away. Like I said, there was like many scenes where someone's calling someone on the phone and they're like, pick up, and then they're just getting the voicemail. That happened. I'm not even exaggerating. It happened like 7 times. And then also, even in that scene when like the police chief is getting the wax on her face, like Chris Rock's rushing to get to her, but he kind of just like walking fast to get to her, right? He's not like running like, oh my God, she's about to be slaughtered.
Yeah, and then he gets into the police station, like he runs to the police station, and once he gets inside, he's like slowly looking around.
Right.
Like, hey, where's the chief?
Right.
Like, yeah. There was also, I mean, it gets to a point also where like at the beginning of the movie where they're talking about how like every cop aside from him is corrupt.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't have police.
Yeah.
That you can't portray the police this badly.
Yeah.
Like you can't. It just.
Well, it was too over the top, right? Because the one guy, Finger Guy, right? They do a flashback, because that was actually one thing I liked about this movie, was that they would have flashbacks to like what the people did wrong. Mm-hmm. And he goes up to a guy that's pulled up in the car and he's like, show me some ID. And I think the guy gives him the finger and they just shoots him right in the face. I'm like, that's a little much, don't you think?
So like, yeah. So like what I'm saying is like, if this movie was set in the 80s.
Yeah.
And like and maybe this is just me having just watched Maniac Cop 1 and 2 on the last drive-in. Yeah. But like if this movie was set in like New York in the 80s, and the streets were just like nobody wanted to be outside after dark, and like our parents would never have allowed us to go into Manhattan on a weekend just for fun.
Right.
Especially in the days before cell phones.
Yeah.
Then, like, I could see this being the type of police station you're dealing with. I know this movie was made 2 years ago, 2019, but still, it's like, you come on, like, it's like I know that it's trendy to, or it, I don't want to get very political, but
sure.
Like cops, there's bad police, obviously, there's good police, obviously. To think that there's like a police station that is just one good and the rest bad.
Yeah.
It depends who's a good cop.
We're having some technical issues. I'm going to try him one more time. If he can't hear me, then we're just calling it a night. All right. Can you hear me now? Awkward. All right, guys. This has been a crazy day, but you know what? It's good to have Danny back on the channel, and also to have Charlotte on the channel too. And so, at the Laster Cast, Danny and Charlotte are going to do their ranking of the Saw movies, and then we're going to move on to The Conjuring. Now, my wife Sherry T and I, we have our other channel, the ANCHORPETE channel. Sherry and I are going to watch The Conjuring, which I've never seen, so it's going to be one of those. Wait, Pete hasn't seen that movies? I'm going to watch that movie, and then we're going to review it and put it up on the Laster Cast. And then Danny is going to review the second Conjuring movie. And then last but not least, Danny and I are going to watch The Conjuring, the third one, The Devil Made Me Do It. And then he and I are going to do another one of these live reviews. And you know what? I hope when we do it, there's going to be any kind of crazy technical issues. But if you guys have watched this whole video, you're awesome. We love you. And the Laster Cast is back. And so we hope to see you guys for June. And between now and then, it's going to be a lot of Conjuring content. But we got one last Saw, which is with Danny and Charlotte ranking the whole series. But before I go, like and subscribe, and also tell us which is your favorite Saw movie. And is this on the top of your Saw list, as in you like it, or is it on the bottom, which is like, maybe we didn't need this one? All right, guys, you are awesome. And this is Anchor Pete saying, see you next time.